right. Just checking audio levels and things like that. Let's see what we got here. And good. Good. All right, cool. Hey, everyone. So I see there are a few people waiting here, so welcome. Today we're going to do something I've been meaning to do for a while. I meant to do this back in September. Is my audio off again? So, the last stream, my audio was off, and it looks like it's off again. I need to fix it. So, let's see. I am going to... This is what we call live troubleshooting, right? Let's see if I can just kind of walk around the back. Yeah, it's definitely got a lag to it. And we'll just reset this fellow here. Wrong one. All right, so looks okay. Maybe. All right, well, we'll see. So I restarted my Focusrite Scarlett, which is my audio interface. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Live troubleshooting, everyone. So, yeah, I don't know why I've had such a problem. Like last stream, last week, you know, afterwards I noticed it was just completely like out of sync. It looks like it's in sync now. Hey, Christina. Hello, welcome. Hey, Christina is a fellow AEL, so she will help me troubleshoot, right? So Christina, do my lips and my voice match? Is my audio in sync for you? Please let me know. And welcome. Tell you. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell because everything on the, you know, I don't get actual. You're hearing me. That's good. But like, do my lips match the voice and everything? I hope so. Either way, I did reset my Scarlett, so. And I don't know what it is, you know, like, so I've used a number of different audio interfaces over the years, right? So, you know, all sorts of different stuff. And it seems like every couple of years in, the audio interface just starts getting weird. Like something will happen to it. And it's just such a shame, you know? So we'll see. I'll look at the, maybe I'm just nuts. Maybe I'm just worried after last time. But we'll see what happens. I will look back into this in the recording. But this is what we're doing today. We're going to do some more Animate. So as I was saying before, I noticed this audio problem. I meant to do, I had on the list of topics to cover back in December, a way to generate Snowfall inside of Animate. Kind of using both the drawing tools and the library, and also a bit of code, of course, to do this. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. Somebody on my YouTube, so I always post these replays on my YouTube channel afterwards. And, you know, somebody had some nice things to say and mentioned that they were looking forward to the Snowfall episode. And I was kind of like, oh, I kind of like threw that in the trash bin. Just because I had other things to do, you know? So I was like, well, that one we don't have to do. So today we're doing it. So, you know, definitely people do have an influence on what I do in these streams. So if there is something you want to see, you know, for sure, let me know and I'll try to accommodate. And that's why we're doing this today. So let's go ahead and start moving on with Animate. So this is Adobe Animate. If you're new to Animate, we've got our stage in the middle here. We've got our toolbar on the side. We've got different panels like the properties panel and so forth. And we have a timeline down below. Now we're not going to do too much with the timeline today because we're going to be doing most everything with either the drawing tools in the library or with just straight up code. So we're going to use JavaScript because this is an HTML5 canvas document. You could also use ActionScript for this if you wanted to, but in that case, you'd probably want to export to something like HD video, right? So Christina, how are you doing in Cordoba? Am I saying that right? Cordoba. Yeah. So I am located, for those who don't know, in Colorado, and I stream on behalf of the Adobe Education team as a Adobe Education Leader featured live stream. So actually we start our semester next week, so that'll be good. I've had like 6 or 7 weeks off, and at this point it feels a little, you know, I'm ready to get back into it, let's just say. Yeah. So next Wednesday is when I start teaching again, which is going to be good. So let's see here. Inside of Animate, yeah, we got this FLA created. And what I'm going to do, if we look inside of the document properties here, we can see it's just a generic 550 by 400, which is the default canvas size. The frames per second is 24. I'm going to change that actually to 30. I generally like working in what's it called? Whole numbers sort of thing, like 10, 20, 30, 40. I'm terrible at math, so it helps. It makes things easier for me to calculate in my mind, right? Ah, Christina's on summer holidays. That's right. So you are far enough south that the sun is above you now. It's much closer to you than it is to me. So I am in the midst of winter here. So we have snow on the ground. It's very cold. UV indexes kind of go between 0 and 1 every day. And that's how I like it, actually. I dislike intense sunlight and warmth and things like that. I'd rather it be cold. So, let's see here. A couple weeks ago, what we did, if you were on the stream, we did some stuff inside of Fresco. I actually had some snowfall, a winter storm, and I've got this little guy. This is what I created in Fresco as a basic watercolor kind of thing. I'm going to use this as the background, boom, for our content today. So instead of having to redraw a wintry scene, let's go ahead and use the free transform tool here to resize this fellow. There we go. And match it somewhat to our content here, right? All those little trees. Fresco. So I'm not sure when this was, And I think it was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. So check it out in the replays if you want to see how this was created. I'm going to hide everything on the pasteboard so that what we're looking at here is exactly what is going to be shown, right? Christina mentions 40 degrees. Very hot. Ugh. Yuck. All right. I'm going to call this background, so BG. I'm going to lock it down because we don't really need to do anything on there. Inside of Animate, it is very common to bind all of your code to a layer that you name actions. And the reason for that is because we want to separate any of our code from any visuals, right? So there we go. Got my actions. Now I don't have anything in here yet. If I look in my library, I've got my PNG right there, but that's it. I don't have snowflakes to generate. So let's go ahead and create some snowflakes. So small. What I'm gonna do is choose my oval tool here. And let's disable our stroke and have a fill of white, right? And then I'm gonna zoom in 200% here. I'm gonna create a little circle. In this little circle, if we look in our properties panel, it's 10 by 10. That's a little big. So let's go ahead and change that. I'm gonna change it to like 4 by 4. That's a nice little snowflake. Let's take the fill opacity down. 22% looks good. Well, maybe a little more because you gotta think about the white parts, right? So if I move this up here, do we still see it? Yeah, we still see it. So that's pretty good. 61%. Let's make it a whole 60 or 64. I'm rather specific about numbers. And then with this guy selected, what we're going to do is click this little quick action right here. This quick action converts our shape to a symbol. When something is a symbol, it's going to be included inside of our document library. And what that means is we're able to then invoke it with code and create multiple versions of it, right? So boom, convert to symbol. Name, snowflake. Let's copy that for later. And now if we look in our library, we also have snowflake right here. Okay, so snowflake, there's an instance on the stage right here. I'm gonna delete that. So we have no snowflakes on the stage. And what I wanna do is add a linkage ID to my snowflake. So double click inside of the linkage column, and I'm gonna name the linkage ID snowflake as well. What is a linkage ID, right? So a linkage ID, what that allows you to do is store things inside of your library, inside of Animate, and then invoke them, via code to bring them out, to make multiple copies, to give them behaviors and have them do something, right? Either just appear on the stage, give them movement, whatever it might be. So now we are prepped, we are primed to start creating a snowstorm. Let's make it snow, right? So I'm gonna go back over here. I'm actually going to shift. So I'm gonna move my properties down like that. And I'm also going to make sure that my actions is selected here because I wanna bind any code to this specific frame. With that done, I'm gonna open up or expand my actions panel. So here's my actions panel here. Let's fit in window for this so we can see that. So I still have my stage and I still have my timeline here. So I can keep referencing this if I need to, right? But I also have my script editor inside of my actions panel. So if you don't have your actions panel open, which it isn't open by default, you can always go to window, actions. And then it appears, right? So actions, 1. The first thing I actually want to do, and this is something specific to HTML5 canvas, right? You've got these global properties here. So you've got include scripts, which allow you to add, right? Use this little button here, add new global script. You can have scripts, files, external to Animate that you then bring in on runtime. So this is really good for, you know, something like you want to include a JavaScript library inside of your code to do some creative stuff. Just add the script in there. You can bring it in and invoke all of its functions. It's really cool. You also have script, and this is what we're going to be using. So script allows you to define global scripts, things like global variables, things of that nature, right? So let's go in. You know, I still think my audio is off here. I don't know. It still seems off. I'm worried. But it's not a big deal, I guess. These are just stupid live streams, right? Who cares? So, code. Let's go ahead and generate some Snowfall. So what we're gonna do inside of my global scripts, now the global scripts, the thing that makes them special is that they are available. So any sort of like variables you define inside of your global scripts in an HTML5 canvas document, they're going to be available within movie clip symbols, on your main timeline, within, you know, nested functions and so forth, like all over the place. That might be getting a little too codey there, but that's how it works, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and say, return my piece. Let's see. I want to create a new variable for what we're going on here. So var. Var is going to declare a variable. I could declare this as a variable or constant. I'm just going to use var for variables. And I want my stage width. So I'm going to say stage W. We can also declare stage height. So var stage H for stage height. And then we're going to have, well, that's about it. Something else we could do inside of our global scripts area is define functions as well as variables. There is a randomization function I like to use. It's heavily used inside of my book, Mastering Adobe Animate 2023, which is coming out in a few weeks. So it is a function. We'll declare it as a function. And I'm just going to call it randomize. And then we're going to pass into randomize both a min and a max. So what the randomization function I'm writing here is going to do is it's actually going to deliver us, when we invoke it, some number between what we pass in for the minimum and the maximum. So something in between there. So how we do that is we say we're going to return a number, and that's going to use math dot. And you can see we get some auto completion here. So math dot round, math dot random, doink. And we're going to multiply that by the max argument that we pass through here, right? So it's a random times what we want for our maximum. And then what we're going to do is add our minimum to that. And that should do it. That is kind of like the standard randomization function you can use across any ECMAScript languages, whether it be ActionScript, JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever you're using, right? As long as it's a basic ECMAScript derivative, you should be able to use it just fine. So this is a little foreign to me at this point. I haven't written major coding systems in a few years now, after I left the University of Denver in 2019. I was once a software engineer for the university, And the current leadership of that university decided they no longer needed software engineers. Go away. So now I'm much happier in my role as faculty at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Much happier. So there we go. There's our global stuff, right? So of course, if we click to select this, you'll notice everything goes away right here. We can see we have actions 1 selected right now. Everything goes away and people might panic and be like, where did all my code go, right? It's actually still included in your global scripts. So if I go global script, it all comes back, right? But if I click on that frame, I can now write scripts that are tied to that specific frame. So what do I want to type in here? I want to define some things, right? I want to define stage W, right? So stage W, in script, we set stage W as a global variable. So because it's a global variable, now when we actually address this in frame 1, it's going to be like, okay, this is a global variable, so I'm going to use that. And it's like, thank you, Animate. That's exactly what I want. What we're going to do is set the width of our stage. Now you can see the width right here is like 550 by 400, right? The height's 400. The width is 550. So what we need to do is set that. However, it's a little weird when it comes to the web, when it comes to HTML5 canvas, because if you're using a Retina display versus a non-Retina display, you're going to have this sort of like pixel ratio difference, which is going to screw up all of your code when it comes to positioning. So an easy way to get around that is to set things based on the device pixel ratio. So I've got stage W. I'm going to set that to our stage.canvas.width divided by, right? I suck at math, but I know the formula. Divided by window. So window goes into the browser. Window. Device pixel ratio. That'll give us the pixel ratio that we need to conform to, right? And then we can do all our calculations for positioning, and they will be correct. So, device pixel ratio. And, by the way, device pixel ratio, you can see it didn't give me like an autocomplete for this. The reason for that is because that's just not programmed inside of Animate. Animate doesn't know what window is. So I'm going to do the same thing for stage H. Instead of width, I'm going to go to height. And I'm going to divide that by the same pixel ratio, of course. Right? We're going to keep it all nice and neat. So no additional comments here. Interesting enough. So anybody who's on the stream, hello and welcome, and please do go ahead and say something. Say like, hey, what are you working on today? What is your... Do you work in Animate? Is it fun? Right? What do you like to work in creatively? Let us know. I'm keeping my eye on the chat, so. All right, next. What we're gonna do is define a container to hold our different snowflakes. I'm gonna call my container snowstorm. It makes sense. So we're gonna create a new variable. I'm gonna call this snowstorm. And I'm going to set it equal to a new create.js dot container. Container. Boom. There we go. New container. Okay. Is that out with parentheses? Okay. There we go. We got our snowstorm container. So what a container does inside of create.js, and this isn't necessarily an Animate specific feature right here, right? And a lot of the stuff we're doing today isn't specifically done with Animate. This is all create.js. Create.js is a code library that was written to sort of emulate the old Flash player display list, which makes it like really powerful because the display list inside of Flash player was an awesome way to do creative coding and interactive visual development and so forth. So it all works very, very well. Hello, Duncan. How are you? Duncan mentions doesn't work in Animate yet, which is completely fine. Yes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new function that's going to create things for us, right? So inside of here, what we're going to do, now that we've got this container, our snowstorm, is we're going to create snowflakes, right? So this is great. So I'm going to create a new function, and it's going to be called let it snow, right? Let it snow. There's our function. So we can call this function whatever we want, right? And what we're going to do inside of this function is we're going to create a new variable, snowflake. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to be repeating this a number of times. So I want to have it in my clipboard. So var snowflake, we're going to have that equal new lib. So what's a lib, right? What does that refer to? If we look here, if I go dot, you know, there's nothing here. But I can say new lib dot snowflake. And what does that do? New lib dot snowflake is going to tap into our lib, which is create.js's way of referring to the document library. So if you remember, if you were here at the very beginning, inside of our document library, we created this little snowflake, right? There's our snowflake. It's basically a little white circle with 64, I believe, 64% opacity applied to that white fill color. So, very good. So we are invoking the symbol called snowflake. It's got a linkage ID. Snowflake right there. We gave it that linkage ID at the beginning. So it's going to invoke that particular symbol based off the linkage ID. And it's going to create a new variable which refers to an instance of that snowflake, right? So from here, we can set things like the X and the Y position. So let's say snowflake.x equals. So the X position is going to be from, like, if we look on the stage here, right? Here's the stage. The X position is from here over to there, right? It's from left to right. The height of the stage determines the Y position. So we're going to do both of these. So the X position we're going to set to, and if you recall, we created inside of our global scripts a function called randomize. You can pass in a minimum and a maximum. It's going to give us a random number between those two numbers that we pass in. So I'm going to set this to randomize. If I can spell. And we've got min and max. So what's the min? Right? The min is probably going to be like 0. So 0 is the left edge of the stage. What's the max going to be? The max is going to be the stage width. Stage W, which we also defined inside of our global scripts, right? And you know, funny thing, as I'm going through this, I'm like, you know, I'm probably the only person streaming on using any kind of code right now on Behance. It's not something you see a lot. So Snowflake Y, we're gonna do the same kind of thing. Randomize. And we're gonna start at the top. So 0. We can say stage H, stage height. And if I could spell stage correctly, that would work a lot better. Because if you don't spell things correctly in code, everyone, guess what happens? All of your code basically does not work at all. It breaks. So there we go. I've got an X and Y position for this. And let's set a custom variable as well. I'm gonna say snowflake.s. S is gonna be our speed. So X and Y are inherent to, you know, the movie clip symbol instance we're instantiating here. S, speed, is something that's just a variable. Animate, create.js does not know what S is, doesn't know what speed is. We need to interpret that as we go through our loop, right? So S is going to equal, again, a randomization. So randomize. And what's our min for speed? We don't want it to be 0 because that would mean that some snowflakes are going to just be 0, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to do 0.5. And it's probably going to be pixels. So let's say 3. 0.5 to 3. Sounds pretty good. And we can change this later, of course. Okay. That's probably pretty good for our let it snow function. And what we need to do to actually let it snow, because if we test this right now, if I go ahead and click test movie up in the upper right-hand corner, this is what we got. Nothing's happening, right? Which is fine. I don't expect anything to happen. I do want to check the console to make sure there's no errors. No errors. Good. So that means the code that we have right in there right now is working just fine. Just perfect. But what I'm going to do here is I need to create a sort of like a heartbeat, right? For the application to run, to generate snowfall, and maybe to have snowfall collisions and things like that, which I don't think we're gonna have time to do something like that today, but we can definitely, and we definitely need to create what's known as a loop or a heartbeat. So what I'm gonna do is declare a variable called heartbeat. And this is gonna be set equal to create.js ticker. As you can see, ticker comes up. It's a sort of integral function of create.js as a library. What the ticker does is it allows you to have something run at a certain interval across time, right? So you're thinking about snowstorms, snowflakes. You want to generate those snowflakes across time. So what we're going to do is say on tick. On tick is going to have something execute at each tick of our ticker. Inside of Animate, when you use create.js, the ticker ticks are based on the FPS setting that you have set. I have my FPS setting, or my frames per second, at 30. That means the ticker is going to execute a function 30 times every second, which is going to generate a lot of snowfall, right? So the next thing we have to put in here is, you can see here, our listener function. So the function is going to be let it snow. Let it snow, friends. And I'm going to pass in this, just in case we need it. This is a reference to the current scope in JavaScript in our timeline and so forth. There's our heartbeat. And if I say something like console.log, we can pass something in and be like, you know, beat. There's our tick. And if I test it now, this keeps coming up and, oh, look at that. Oh no, we got something going on. It's bad. Unexpected token. So I have a stray curly brace somewhere. Where would that be? So heartbeat equals create jest ticker on tick, let it snow. This. Open, close, curly brace. Oh, shoot. That's right. I'm doing this wrong. Okay. I can't just invoke let it snow from here. I mean, I could, I suppose. But what I might want to have other things happen, right? So let it snow. I'm going to need to invoke inside of a different function, which is going to be in the heartbeat function itself, right? So let it snow in console.log. We need to declare a name for this function. So function, let's just call it Snowfall. I'm using snowy terms quite a bit. That's okay. And we're going to pass in an event in here because an event does get passed in. That event is a tick event. In here, instead of invoking let it snow directly, I'm going to invoke Snowfall. So heartbeat and every tick will invoke Snowfall. Snowfall is going to invoke let it snow and also pass in this beat, right? So here too, I got my snowflake, but that's not actually being added to anything yet, which we'll see very soon. Assuming I corrected my mistakes here, right? So let's go ahead and run this. Looks much better. Let's inspect. There we go. So check that out. You can see beat. It is running. It is outputting beat 30 times every second, which is great. It's going to create a lot of snow for us, right? Hey, Reverb Mike, how are you? Yeah, often good to learn the way to not do things. Yeah. And this is something that people don't understand, especially when it comes to code or really anything, right? Is that, what the heck is this? Listen, that was text from my mom, right? You have to always just check. Make sure. If your mom texts you, you gotta look. That's the rules. So, yeah, it's not a big deal. So, but I noticed I had a text. I'm like, what's this? Oh, it's from my mom. Well, it's my mom. What are you gonna do? Go check it. All right, so got our snowfall here. What we need to do is actually add these snowflakes to our container, right? They don't actually exist yet. So we're gonna say snowstorm dot add child, right? So inside of Animate, there's always like this parent-child relationship for different things. This is the way the display list has always worked. We need to add our snowflakes to our snowstorm. And also we need to add our snowstorm to the stage. So to do that, gosh, let me check my notes because I can't remember. Like I said, it's been a while. Eek. I think we just say create.js.stage. Oh no, we just say stage. Look at that right there. So here. So stage.addChild. And we are going to add our snowstorm to the stage. Perfect. So to recap, because we got a bit of code here, right? We have inside of our global scripts, we set variables for stage W and stage H, representing the width and height of our stage. And we also create a randomization function which accepts a minimum and maximum value and outputs a number between those two numbers. On frame 1, we set our stage width and height to represent the stage width and height for the canvas element based on the device pixel ratio. Then we create our snowstorm container element, which is going to contain all of our snowflakes. We add that snowstorm container element to our stage so it's visible. We create a function called letItSnow, which generates a snowflake. So we see here, create a new variable called snowflake. It pulls our snowflake from our document library where we drew out a snowflake and added it as a movie clip symbol. Then we set the X and Y position to a random number. We also set the speed that the snowflake should fall to a random number. And then we add that snowflake to our snowstorm, right? It's a lot of stuff. So here we set our heartbeat, which is going to run on every tick, which is 30 times per second because our FPS setting in our document is set to 30 frames per second. Each ticket invokes Snowfall, which invokes letItSnow to create a new snowflake. And it also outputs this beat here to the log, so we know it's working, but we don't need that anymore, so I'm going to delete it. Okay. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. So what we need to do now is inside of our loop here, inside of our heartbeat, we need to go ahead and make our snowflakes move, right? So let's look, because if we look right now, I bet we might be able to see some snowflakes. Oh, shoot, look at that. So here we see snowflakes being constantly added. Although we don't need them added everywhere, right? So I've got some weird stuff going on in here where I'm setting my snowflake Y, that's top to bottom, right? I'm setting it from 0 to stage height. So they're just appearing all over the stage. Let's change that to -500 to 0. That means they're gonna appear 500 pixels above the border of the stage, the top border, and 0 is gonna be the top border of the stage. So they'll appear above, out of sight, and then they'll be able to float down. In this next part that we do, and I think this next part is probably gonna take us to the hour, so that'll be that, right? 'Cause I don't like to go much past an hour on these streams. I think it's a bit wearing, a bit tedious for viewers, right? So, yeah, letItSnow. So inside of here, on every frame, we can also check the positioning of each snowflake. The way we do this is through a for loop. So for loop inside of create.js works just like a normal JavaScript for loop, and for that matter, an ActionScript for loop as well, since they're both based upon ECMAScript. So we say for, and then we pass in here a variable of I to keep count, right? And we set that equal to the children of our snowstorm. So like, how many snowflakes are we dealing with here? We can say snowstorm, which is our container. We can say dot children, which brings back an array of little children that we can then loop through. There we go. And I usually do it this way. I set it to -1 so that we don't get an invalid index, right? Indexes in JavaScript and ActionScript always start at 0. So we have to remove 1, or else we can get an invalid index, which ain't great, right? We're gonna check and see if I, the current value of I, is greater than or equal to 0, because 0 is gonna mean that we don't have any snowflakes left to look at. Finally, we're gonna increment, or decrement rather. Oops. Underscores aren't gonna do anything for us there. We're gonna decrement I. So what this does is create a little loop for us. It's gonna loop through that container, see how many snowflakes am I dealing with right now? And then it's gonna do something with those snowflakes. So we need to identify a snowflake. Var SF. SF is our snowflake. Inside of our index, our child snowflake in that array. SF is going to be equal to snowstorm dot presence of footfalls within these woods. Get child? Yeah, get child at index, because we're dealing with indexes. Get child at, and we'll pass in I, because I is the index we have created right here. So you've got an array of snowflakes inside of your snowstorm. You want to identify a specific snowflake in order to move it down the stage more, in order to stop it, or whatever you want to do, right? So we're going to check here. We're going to say SF. I don't know why it didn't indent for me nicely. Come on, Animate. Guys. All right, we're going to check to see. Well, if SF dot Y, we want to make sure it's not off screen, right? So if SFY is equal to, what is it, stage H, right? Stage height. No, if it's greater than stage height, then we want it to move, right? So this implies if it's not, wait, if it's less than stage height. Oh, math. If it's less than stage height, we want it to continue moving down. If it's stage height or greater, we want it to stop. Yeah. So this is a conditional statement. What we're going to do is we're going to say like, hey, you know, if it's Y, if the Y position is less than stage height, then we want to say SF.Y plus equals, that's going to say its current value plus a certain number. And what that number is going to be is FS.S. What is that? SF.S. That is this. So this is the speed. It's going to be between 0.5 pixel and 3 pixels in movement. So they'll all go a bit, they'll all have a little bit different speeds here. Yeah. Okay. Is that it? That might be it. Let's test it. I'm not seeing any snowflakes. So ensconced in futility. Why don't I see any snowflakes? Get child out. If snowflake Y is less than the stage height, I don't know. Wait. Minus. Reverb Mike says, maybe we've had enough snow this year. It's very possible. So, console.log. This is the basic debugging method for any JavaScript stuff. Console.log. Let's go ahead and check on what the Y position of sf.y actually is, right? So maybe that's what's doing it. It's been a while since I've done a coding live stream. Oh shoot, look at that. It's not even executing. What? What is I? Actually, let's check up here. Console.log E. Here's the thing, everybody. This might be a two-parter. I don't like to do those, but hey, look at that. So the tick is working. There are my tick events, right? So my ticks are going just fine. That's good. So we've eliminated this. The ticks are functioning. Let it snow is working, right? We've seen the snowflakes appear before. So it's something to do with this function right here. I set up my loop wrong. So we're setting I for an index equal to snowstorm.children. Oh, shoot. So, hello. We want the number of children, right? When you set it to children, it's going to give you back an array. So, an array is not a number, right? Num children is a number, and that's gonna work. Wow, okay. Do it. I still don't see any snow. Oh, look, I see snow. Woo! Look at that. There is our snowfall. And check it out. Like at the bottom of the screen there, you can see the snow is stopping when it gets to the bottom. Oh, look at that. That's great. Zoom in on that. Well, check that out. We have created a snowstorm. We have made snow, and the snow is accumulating. So, you know, you could take this to a number of different levels from here, right? Probably the next step for me, if I wanted this to be very realistic, is instead of simply stopping the snowfall, right, on at the bottom here, which you can see it's all stopping and just kind of like gathering up at the bottom. Eventually it'll just all merge into one big white line, which, you know, ain't great, but it's something. You could also take into account that snow. So you could do a hit test against the snow that exists. And, you know, then it would pile up instead of just going along this line at the bottom, which is doing right now. Cute. Yeah. I'm pleased. All right. Perfect. Christina mentions send some snow to South America, please. So if you weren't here at the beginning, Christina is experiencing very hot. It's their summer, you know, down there. They're experiencing very hot temperatures right now. Whereas in Colorado, where I am, I'm experiencing this, right? Let it snow, guys. So very different. Very different. But don't worry. So we are past our winter solstice, right, Christina? We're sending the sun back down past the tropics, past the equator, and it can nestle back. Is it Capricorn or Cancer? So you got like the two tropics, right, on a map, and you've got the equator in between the two, right? And the tropics are sort of like the extent, right, to where the sun moves between the equator. So the sun just like shifts, right? So anybody below the equator, like Christina, right, has some very warm weather right now because the sun is moving. Oh yeah, it's moving more toward you, isn't it? So yeah, that's not great. Well, no, I think it's coming toward us again. Up here. Yeah. But you got the two tropics. You got the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. I can't remember which one is north and which one is south, but they're both situated on either sides of the equator. And the sun just kind of just shifts between them to create the seasons, right? It's always interesting stuff. Anyhow, well, this was fun, everyone. It's noontime where I am in Colorado. And yeah, we made it snow. So that's cool. Yeah, thank you for showing up, Christina. I hope this was somewhat interesting, even though I know it's a little less, you know, something a bit different. So Tropic of Cancer, that's the one that's closest to you. Is that right? That's the one that's most southerly? I could look it up. Google. Let's see. Tropic of Cancer. Oh, Cancer is the one that's closest to me. So here is the map. So there's the Tropic of Cancer right here. And the Tropic of Capricorn, I believe, would be then right here, with the equator being right dead center in this projection, right? Maps are always interesting. So when I was back at the University of Denver, there was one faculty who did a lot of studies with maps. It wasn't maps to this scale, like maps of the Earth or anything, but maps are always really interesting. It's a very high-level map. It looks like standard, like, is it Mercator projection, where like everything, you know, toward the pole is very distorted, and everything toward the Antarctic down here is also very distorted. Antarctica is not that big. If you've ever looked at everything, like, it's actually like, you know, if you put Antarctica in the middle here, it's like a normal size continent, you know, but it looks just absolutely enormous on this map because it's a projection. It's, you know, it's all squished out and distorted and everything. The world is a fascinating and mysterious place. Just like Alaska, right? Alaska looks like it's as big as like 2/3 of the United States. It's not. It is not. And Greenland up here, it looks as big as the continent of North America. No, it's not. The USSR, or what do they call it now? Shoot. Just Russia now, right? I'm dating myself here. Looks way too big as well. So, Yeah, there's lots of distortion on this particular projection. But yeah, Tropic of Cancer, there it is. So we had our, what do you call it? Winter solstice, right? And that means that the days are getting longer for us. So the sun is moving its way back up toward the Tropic of Cancer right here from the Tropic of Capricorn, which is down below where Christina is, right? Yeah, the map makers are totally biased. Yeah. They're a bunch of... They just make up whatever they want. They're like, this is what it looks like. Okay. Anyhow. Yeah, and I often, you know, bring this back to like education, right? When I'm talking about Lightroom and photography in my classes, you know, I often make the point that every photograph that you see is some sort of distortion, right? There's some sort of distortion from the lensing and everything. It's not gonna ever be true to what you actually see with your eyes. And, you know, your eyes have lenses too, so, you know, what you're actually seeing with your human eyes isn't necessarily how things actually are. Like nothing, everything is representational, right? Anyway, that's a good part to let's leave it at that, right? All right, cool. Everyone, please have a happy and safe new year. There's too many people who, you know, for whatever reason, decide to exit during the new year. And don't do that, right? Don't do it. So, yeah. All right. See you next week, everyone.
Once exposed, now trapped. Walking in circles, giving up. Arriving at some forgotten